I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening to another Broken English podcast. My name is Bola Madar, your host with the most, and this is our co-host, Hugo. I don't have a fancy middle name, Bloody.
And I don't know if I'm a host with the most or just an enough. You know, I'm okay.
We'll figure out something for you.
So we were talking about, which I believe we've spoken about before, this movie, this little low budget called Tenet.
This low budget indie film called Tenet that's coming out. No, it just came out actually.
It's out. By the time this is published, it will have done the rounds.
I'm trying to avoid what's the buzz about, not the buzz, but the critical reception, right, and even the box office numbers of it, because I just kind of, but because I'm mulling right now the thought of going to see it.
Yeah, well, I'm debating it as well because, and for those of you that don't know, I'll let you know, I was a bit sick recently. And with myself being sick, I was like, oh, shit. Really, really extreme feelings of weakness and coughing and sore throat, etc. So I went and I got a COVID test. And it was fun. It was as fun as you'd expect. Someone shoves something right up your nose, goes round and round, causes a lot of discomfort for about 10 seconds, and then has the audacity to say to you, and I quote, "You should have seen your face." Now that I've had that,
was this an intern or something?
No, this was a nurse. So now that I've had that, I'm sort of warming more to the idea of going towards the theatre and trying it out.
Yeah.
And just wearing a mask and being distanced and seeing what's what.
Yeah.
Because it seems like one of those films that you'd really want to see. And if you go there with the right cautions, I don't know if I'm as fearful as I was, as long as there's enough spacing and such.
Yeah, well, just for me, it's just like knowing that the spacing protocols and and like I said, being out here where we don't have the highest numbers, it's pretty low relative to everywhere else. I feel more safer doing it. I feel more at ease going into something like that. Now, obviously, going there with the precautions of just like being mindful, as always, wearing a mask, right, and right, being very aware of surfaces and people and all that stuff. Because if the malls are open again, I mean, the malls have been open for a while, so there hasn't been too much.
I mean, but a mall is very different to a theater.
Yeah, it's very different, but it's different. The only it's different, but the similarity is that you're around a lot of people,
right,
in a closed space.
I have a friend that's seen quite a few films in the theater since COVID has been going on.
Oh, really?
This has been out in sort of Surrey Langley area, and he's been saying, by and large, in a parking lot that can hold several hundred people, there's been an average of maybe 20 cars. And in the auditoriums that he's been watching films, there's maybe been 5 people, and they've been very much apart from one another. Now, with a film like Tenet, that's going to be a different scenario because of the fact that it is the film of the moment. It's the one everyone's hyped about. So you have to wonder. I mean, I suppose there's going to be a situation where the theatres will only be able to sell a select number of tickets for each showing.
Yeah, I would imagine it's very limited.
And you would hope that people would be, and I say hope because we've seen, what have they coined for the term for men? I know women are Karens. What are men? Is there a male version? Anyway, you're going to have people that are going to be inconsiderate, but really it's up to you then to sacrifice your seat, your position. Like, if you have a dickhead that comes up to you and wants to sit right by you, well then, you can either get into your altercation in an auditorium or you can go and move elsewhere.
Well, isn't it pre-selected seats?
I haven't done any investigating into booking or not.
I believe that's what somebody told me, that you have to pre-select your seats, and it's probably if you're pre-selecting, it's probably a range that there's gaps, but I could be wrong.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
If that is the case, that'd be fantastic, because that would give you that added layer of space, security.
I'll investigate it myself. I just, don't hold me to that. I just don't know 100%.
Okay. So do you think you will be going?
I'm in the direction of seeing it. Yeah. Could be even as soon as this weekend. Wise? Like, I'm just in that direction. I'm curious, and I just miss the theater experience.
Yeah.
And just based on the threat, I think it's worth the gamble. It's just worth it.
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily worth contracting COVID over.
It's
However,
not worth contracting COVID.
I think if you're careful, though, I think if you're careful, though, it can be worked around.
Yeah. I think it's just...
I mean, the cameras are already rolling again here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can see that, too. I mean, even getting more auditions recently and seeing the production lists of things that are going on. So it's like, things are getting back. The industry here is getting back. I'm not sure to what capacity compared to last year, but it's definitely roaring again.
Yeah, Ben Affleck's apparently moved his latest production that he's directing up here because of issues with Hollywood testing.
Well, what's the issues with Hollywood testing?
I think it's not as rigorous as over here. I think it's harder to get a test or something like that.
Really?
So, apparently they're coming to Canada.
Okay, good for him.
So what I was just seeing recently, did you ever watch that TV show I recommended to you called Utopia?
No.
It's a British TV show which I'd never heard of, that was recommended to me by one of the producers and writers on Woke. And it's I think you'd actually really enjoy it. And it's a very time-relevant sci-fi drama. It's being remade, though, which kind of annoys me, because it's in English.
It annoys you.
Well, no, you've said. But it annoys me because it's in English, right?
Right.
And it's, again, being remade by the Americans. As if to say, it's that hard to understand any variation of the English language that is not pure Californian or New Yorker.
You know, Constantine was an English character. It's based off an English character, right?
I know very little about Constantine. We established that last.
I wonder if that's what pissed you off about it.
Maybe.
But yeah, sorry. You're saying it. So this is originally a British-based show.
Yeah, and it did 2 seasons, and it was really well done. I really enjoyed it. I'm curious to see, because it's coming out as an Amazon Prime original, which always baffles me when they call them originals after the fact that they've taken off of something else. But nevertheless, right. I'm not going to argue the semantics or nuances there.
Right.
But I'm curious to see what they'll do, because it's kind of an edgy sci-fi show. Or, yeah, I suppose it is science fiction, yeah. It's kind of an edgy show with really well done plots.
What's the premise of it?
Essentially, it's kind of a DNA-related conspiracy. Is the best way I can summarize it. I really think you'd enjoy it, based on your taste.
How many seasons so far?
They did 2 for the UK version. And they actually wrapped it up at the end of the 2nd season in the UK version.
Well,
but then again, UK's...
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, just UK stuff tends to be shorter.
Yeah, I know, it's only a few. That was also something when I started watching UK shows. I was kind of baffled. Why is there just a few episodes compared to what they do here, right? But I guess it's just how it's done over there. Now, here's the thing. I get what you mean about when they change the setting.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's just like why. Now I understand. Sometimes I understand why they do it. I believe House of Cards was based off of a British show, wasn't it?
Yes.
Right.
And House of Cards, I think in the UK did 3 series, and I think what it was 5 on Netflix or something.
Yeah, it was like 5 or 6 seasons. I remember.
And but their seasons, of course, are even longer. As
Yeah.
well.
So I get it, right? I get it. Okay. Because it's a political show and it probably translates better if you have it for American politics. Because I don't think people
Right.
would be, over here would be really privy to British politics. So it just probably wouldn't land here as much as it would if it was done in if it was done with American politics, right? And the show was phenomenal, well, up until the last
Right.
season. But but if I was watching Luther, for example, and it's like they wanted to go do that in America, I'm like, nah, it's good. It's like it's all right. Like I like what we got already here. It's like
Mhm.
I don't think there's any need to remake it or redo it or something like that. I think it's good.
Well, and the thing with Utopia as well is where House of Cards was very much bound to a system that would be harder to understand.
Yeah.
So the political system was a bit different. It also was 30 years old in terms of a show,
Oh.
or however old it was. It was an older show. House of Cards wasn't done last week in the UK. It was done many years back.
Oh, I see.
So I can understand an updated version of something.
Yeah.
But Utopia, I believe, was out within the past, at most, 7 years, but I think a lot less than that.
Right.
So it's quite contemporary. Everything's fairly modern, fairly up to date, speaking the same language that you speak. Yes, it's not personalized, but I'm sorry, someone that lives in Idaho is not going to have the same life experience and knowledge of someone that lives in New York. It's not going to have the same as someone that lives, in, I don't know, Dallas, Texas, or wherever. The point being is it's a different place, which also adds to the story. Everything that is set somewhere can be set somewhere, and if you speak the same language, really, you can't try and understand a dialect.
Well,
An accent.
Why do you think they did that instead of just bringing that show here?
I wonder whether it was done for the idea of being able to do it indefinitely.
Indefinitely.
And what I mean by that is if the show wrapped itself up, and if I buy the rights to it and think, actually, you wrapped it up too soon, we could do 10 seasons.
I see. But they would have to but in order to do that, they would have to create the magic. And that's not a surefire thing.
It's not.
Right?
But I mean, they did that with many shows. They did that with The Office.
Yeah.
The Office is the perfect example of that.
Which is rare, though.
Yes,
well, I'd say
it is.
rare, but it's a gamble. It's not a guarantee. The Office is a fun example of where they take a British show and then it becomes even bigger, over in North America, right? And they're able to, have the magic with it. I haven't seen the original British version of it. It was with Ricky Gervais, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't.
That's
really
what made him him.
Right. I haven't really seen it, and honestly, I really didn't even watch The Office because I don't have TV. I haven't had TV in a long time. So, but I've seen bits of it, right? But I know how popular it is and what it's based on. So it's interesting that kind of thing bothers you, right? Where they've taken British shows and then they've Americanized it. And
does it not bother you?
This is a general topic when it comes to these kinds of things because sometimes it bothers me, sometimes it doesn't. Now,
Okay.
it wouldn't bother me if I never even watched the original thing. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm watching is based on something else. It was the same thing with House of Cards and Homeland. I didn't really know it was based on something until I did.
I didn't know Homeland was based on something else.
Yeah, it's based off an Israeli show actually called Prisoner of War.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that too until a couple of episodes or maybe the season one season into it, I was like, oh, this is actually based off an Israeli show with a similar premise, but I think they went completely in a different direction with it. But it's based off of that show. And obviously they created something that I just loved, right? So this is the thing. This is a very touchy subject because this goes along with a whole lot of other things, right? That people have been complaining about. Like, you know, certain there's that debate with like certain ethnicities are taken out of certain plots or removed from things and then brought in Americanized, and that there's that whole thing. I think I take this from a project to project basis because I can understand why they do that. Sometimes I don't understand and I don't get it. So it's like
Right.
I have to. So I can't say I have a general opinion on it. It's a per show thing. Now I know
You
this might be a
rarely,
little bit close. This might be a little bit closer to the heart because that's where you're from and you really like this show. So this may be a little bit closer to you in that regards.
I mean, it more so it's the fact that I think you don't have to remake everything. And that
We
I've
learned
had
that.
that as kind of a bitter thing. Pardon?
So we've had that conversation a million times. Yeah.
We have, but it's just sort of I don't understand why a lot of the Hollywood system is the remaking machine of things that already are just easily repackaged. There's no reason why you can't have an Australian, an English, a Kiwi, sorry, New Zealand show. There's no reason why you can't have it from everywhere and people just understand it.
Yeah. You see, the thing is like, and I'm just playing the devil's advocate here because I get it. I think a lot of the times when these producers or studios are just looking at this and it's almost like a, I don't know, not xenophobic, but they just have a mentality where they assume the audience will just be this would be too exotic for them if they just didn't remake it.
Which is a problem, and that kind of goes back to our conversation that we had on the previous podcast about Oliver Stone and financing and such. If you cater to people with the simplest of things, they will only have the simplest of things in their repertoire. If, for example, you give me plain potatoes for food, I'm going to go, plain potatoes,
Right.
plain potatoes. What's for dinner? Oh, plain potatoes. If you tend to give me a very rich dish with different flavors and something interesting, then my palate will change and I'll be able to go, well, I can have some plain potatoes if I want, or I can have or this or this.
I I agree with you, man. It's like I think the thing that's not being discussed here is the audience. They're just there
And
there's a certain feedback mechanism here or loop or something that just loops itself, right? It's audience expectation meets assumptions of the creators and the filmmakers.
right, and that's what makes it interesting as well because I was speaking to my cousin a few weeks ago and we were remarking about the fact that your average person working any shift work or a 9 to 5 or whatever, when they come home, they tend to want to switch off their brains. They tend to not want to try because you've woken up early, you've worn yourself out, be it mentally or physically. You come home and you're just like, I'm done with the day. And therefore, when you get your cookie cutter stuff that comes up afterwards, it's easily digestible. You can fall asleep and not be bothered by it, not be too taxed by it. That doesn't work for me because personally, I do like to spark my brain with my entertainment,
I don't. That just doesn't work for me.
but I can understand the argument. And if, as you say, the metrics are saying, well, thought provoking show gets 10 viewers and non thought provoking show gets 2.5 million regularly, it seems to add up a certain way.
They, I just, it's just my observation with these people. They just simply follow the money, not the creativity.
Yes, and you can understand that because it is business.
Yeah, I get it. I understand it's a business, and that's always been the case. But I think it's become more and more of that. It's just, we don't want to take risks. We just want to find things that are well known, established, and seem more of a surefire thing than it's than investing in the next Back to the Future or Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure or something like that. It's like the risk factor is just taken is just there's a risk aversion now in the film industry.
Yeah, and that's perfectly reflected in what you see in auditoriums.
Right. So when it comes to this whole remake or re-localization or whatever you want to call it, I don't know. It's still sometimes it does baffle me in these decisions. Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it's just why. If you're talking about this, I haven't seen the show. I'm curious. I'm gonna go check it out just to see.
I
But
think you'll like it.
when it comes to localization, it's kind of like I wouldn't say I have most of it. I think has worked for me, but there's been a lot of it that has just been like why, right? Just
Right.
why. Now I wish I could be. It's harder for me to speak from it because you're speaking from a personal. This is kind of like a personal level, isn't it? More.
Yes and no. I mean, it's
Is there
it's
other
more
British shows
so
have you
just
seen that have been done like this before, and it kind of like miffed, or kind of like irked you a little bit?
not that I can think of off the top. I mean, this is something that I've seen recently, and then recently discovered that it was being remade.
Be-
But there's plenty that have been redone.
Because I'm trying to think of a Canadian show that has been hijacked or remade, or just something that comes a little bit closer to my chest if it comes to like ethnicity or background or something like that.
Right.
Now, if they started to make the if they remade the Fresh Prince and they put it in, and they made
Oh,
it
did
into
you hear they are?
Oh really?
They are. That was another thing.
Oh,
I don't know if you know
really?
this.
Oh, God.
Well,
Oh, my God.
it's a little more. It's a little more than that.
All right.
So, did you see there was a dark version of the Fresh Prince that they put out?
Dark version.
Yeah. So what happened was, and I think he was an indie filmmaker. I'm not sure where he's from. He came out with, almost a Batman type. Maybe I'm going too far with that.
Right.
But the dark side of moving out more of a dramatic part instead of the comedy part.
Oh, I see.
So it's the guy who is kind of in a bad area and then moves out to his uncle and aunt's place and things aren't going well, and it's a lot more broody and mood and just heavier
Yeah.
than what the Fresh Prince was, but it's following the same sort of premise of a kid in Bel Air who originally was from Philly,
Right.
and how things went awry. And apparently, because it got so much steam on social media, it got millions of YouTube views. Will Smith was like, "Yeah, actually, this is done pretty well," and they're trying to move forward with that version of the story.
As a
It's
TV.
not quite a remake.
Oh, really? So this will be like a darker, like this will be a more dramatic, serious take on the Fresh Prince of Bel Air.
Yes, and I'm not sure if it's meant to be a film or if it's meant to be a show.
So
Look it up after we've done the podcast.
Is this a web series or a trailer or a pitch?
It was, I think it was either a trailer or a short that they did.
Oh, okay. I'll check it out. This is
So
interesting.
it's a slightly different take. Anyway, you were saying?
Well, I'm just saying because haven't my experience is different because I like to put myself in the mind frame of like different kinds of audiences for a lot of these things, right? So imagine, for example, I'm somebody who's Asian, right? And I see something that's Asian themed, right? Beloved or whatever, and it's taken and it's, as the term coined, right? It's whitewashed, right? Asian characters are removed, the settings are changed, or you have an Asian character in a film or in a material, and the Asian character is just taken out or replaced with a white character or something like that, like that happened in Doctor Strange, right? So the thing is, I'm trying to put myself into that mind frame because it happens more for other people more than others. I just can't personally I don't have that kind of experience where, let's just say I'm watching, I'm not very nationalistic, so, and there hasn't been a whole lot. I don't think there's been much Canadian things that have been held like to the hearts of Canadians or something, and it's been taken by Americans or British or something, and
Apart from Tim Hortons.
Tim Horton. Yeah, that's actually that's a good one.
But Tim Hortons is pretty overrated as well. No offense, Tim Hortons, but
Thank God I'm
you're
not
not that
drinking
great.
that.
Yeah, free gas coffee.
We're talking about that 7-Eleven gas station coffee.
It's not 7-Eleven. It's Town Pantry.
Sorry,
Oh,
Town and
you know.
Pantry. Actually, I don't mind Town and Pantry. Okay, I'll give you that. I'll give you some points for that.
So there we go.
But going back to what you're saying, this happens a lot. This does happen with Hollywood, and it's not a new thing. It's just ramped up recently a bit more, maybe one could say.
Right.
And like I said, I can only say for me, it's like yeah. I mean, what we talk about foreign films, right? Okay. And I draw a lot of inspiration and source from foreign films, and I've seen foreign films where they've been taken and they've been made into something really great, and I'm taking them, and it's just been an utter disaster. I recognize it as when you're a creator here, you want to be inspired, right? And I just recognize that foreign films and television shows are sources of inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have anything against it. Even I would do it myself. But I would understand. But I know I'd have to tread carefully at times.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword because, I mean, I spoke to you about this the other day. I'm not sure whether it's a Quebecois production or whether it's a French production, but Brooklyn Nine-Nine, for anyone that watches or knows it, it's a great comedy, and it's a sitcom. It's been going for, I believe, at least 7 or 8 seasons, and it's had its dramas with renewals, but that's by the by. Basically, there's a French remake of it called, I believe it's called Étude 99 or Neuf Neuf. I don't know if I pronounced Étude or Écoute. I'm not sure
Écoute?
if you're French. Pardon?
Écoute?
No, Écoute.
Écoute.
I don't know. But nevertheless, the French version of Brooklyn Nine-Nine just put out a trailer, and people reacted to that with their minds blown, because the remake is literally everything looks the same, which is kind of what they did a bit with the beginning of The Office, which was the annoying part of it. It's one thing if you get the premise of the show and you give it a slightly different twist. But if I happen to have, as they do in the French remake of the American show, characters that look identical except they're the French person version of it. So, for example, you have a slightly overweight guy. This slightly overweight white guy that they've got happens to have a similar face, similar haircut. He's wearing the same wardrobe, etc. Now, of course, they weren't able to get someone as muscular as Terry Crews to do Terry Crews' role. Right. But of course, it's a black guy with a similar look, etc. Like every character is.
It's almost like a mirror, the French mirror of that person.
Yep, including the precinct. Everything looks like it would in the original, except it's not the original. It's new actors,
right,
that are doing the same thing.
Just French actors that look similar to the
American counterpart.
American counterpart.
Yeah.
See, the thing is, for me, I love foreign films, right? And I draw from them as an inspiration, right? Foreign films and TV shows, it's just for me a source, and I don't have any objections to just saying I'm going to remake that. It's not something that I find inherently offensive, but it's just how it's done, right? And then sometimes just some things you should probably leave alone, because it's just the magic where it comes from is because it's this setting and it can only work in this setting. What if they tried to make like Downton Abbey somewhere in America, would it work?
Well, I think
mean-
the thing is, there's inherent value in the original,
Yeah.
and there's always going to be something which should be left as is. When you and I have heard news about remakes and stuff, yeah, you know, you can do it better. But that's kind of the argument with every artist in every aspect, whereby if you write something, if you perform something, if you draw something, you always look at it and you go, you know what? I should change that. I could have cut that differently. I should have added this sound.
Yeah.
And you will consistently review it. To remake it seems kind of not an insult, but it feels like it's doing a disservice to the original material.
I think it's
because of the fact.
I think it's how you reimagine it.
I suppose to a degree, but I think
Because it's just
I can understand it decades later, but when it's too close and when the time periods are too close, I don't see the merit.
I don't even put this in the same category as my general gripe against remakes and reboots, because I think for me sourcing from foreign films is another different kind of animal than the remake reboot happy craze that we're in, because I just think generally when you watch it's just like a foreign films seem like another pool of just like another pool that you can draw from. I don't feel it's the same way as going back into the past and trying to do something because it's like you just run out of ideas. I think you just see something over there and it's like that is really interesting, and for an assortment of reasons I want to take that and bring it over here and do something with our own twist to it.
I suppose, but I don't find art and cooking to be the same thing. You know what I mean?
I think a lot of people can say it's the same thing. I mean, you could put art and cooking.
I suppose there aren't any boundaries in it. Maybe I'm being too rigid in my viewpoint, but
like I said, I think for me it feels like it's a case by case thing, because I've seen it where it's like, man, don't touch. Yeah, I've seen it. Like one that comes to my mind is Old Boy. I mean, it's a foreign film that I just love. It's one of my favorite films of all time. I love Spike Lee, but the remake just did not do anything at all for me.
I didn't see the remake.
No, it's just it was already a tall, well, and it was already a big shoe to fill, one can say, because it was just a really great film with a really interesting and unique premise, and it had an ending that that was very shocking, and it was like a twist, it was all those things, and it's just hard to live up to it. So unless you have a really, really, really interesting take to it, it's hard.
Well, and that's the other thing with regards to any sort of remade material, especially if it's a direct remake. I don't want to watch the same thing.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I don't want to watch the same thing again. If I know, you just highlighted it there.
There you go.
There was an ending with a twist, and it was interesting because of the fact that you
Right.
couldn't predict it. But if you go into the new one, then it stops being the same exposure to the material, to the story, because you're going into it thinking, how are they going to do this and how are they going to do that, and are they going to have they've done this at the end.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know,
That's
only time I've found that. Sorry,
No, I was just gonna say that's a big problem right there. Is just if there's a twist or something and you're coming into this knowing it, it's the magic is not there.
the only time I would find that one of the ways in which it really worked was, did you see the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo films?
No, I didn't see that one.
The Swedish versions?
No,
They were done really well.
right, the Swedish
I
version.
liked them. Yeah. David Fincher remade the first one, and it was fantastic.
Right.
It was another one, going back to our previous podcast, it was a very underrated film. Very underrated.
Okay.
The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the David Fincher version,
Right.
was excellent. And it was one of those few times where, despite knowing everything about the plot,
Yeah.
despite knowing what was going where, when it was going to happen, etc., I still bought into it. I still loved the acting. Daniel Craig, Rooney Mara, I believe Christopher Plummer was in it. Yeah, just that is an exception to the rule that I loosely was putting forth.
Right. So you see right there. So you see that, and you see where it works, right?
Right.
Right. So we see where it works. We see where it works there, and obviously, there's a competent filmmaker in there, David Fincher, right? So
It's more than competent, but carry on.
to say the least, right? So it's in well hands. And it turns out something. It turns out to be something that's just as fantastic as the what you watched before, and that I like I said, it's just I get it. I get it. You see this foreign film, and it's like, fuck, we're gonna bring that over here, and we're gonna do it our way, right? I just don't feel it's the same. Call it. I like to say it's not coming from that. It's not coming from that wasteland of remake happy, the remake reboot land. I don't think it's coming from the same impulse.
Yeah, I get you. You're saying it's not basically saying we need another Spider-Man next year.
Yeah, we need. It's not coming from this. Yeah, it's just not coming from the. For the most part, I think it's not coming from the same greedy, uncreative wasteland
Right.
that we see in these remake reboots things, right? There's actually general inspiration and enthusiasm and wonder to the source material here. It's just not, oh, this did well 20 years ago. Let's pull it out of the vault and put some fairy dust on it or something like that. Right? Or put some Vaseline on it, right? It's
Right.
this.
No, I completely understand that.
This comes from, I think, these things come from a truly genuine place. Like I said, speaking of foreign films, for me, I love foreign films, right? I'll sometimes even just go into a foreign film randomly, not even knowing what the hell it's about. It's because, to me, it's like it's just another. It's like being transported to another place, and I get to see and experience things that just doesn't happen here, and it's just a great source of creative inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved films of all countries and ilks. I try and treat English films the same way, English speaking films the same way. You know, walk into something you don't know blindly,
Yeah.
see how it presents itself to you. But unlike you, I will walk out after 10 minutes.
No, if it's not, well, I mean, for me, it's just gonna like, I do it because even in the worst films, I can grab some. If I'm watching a film at a certain point and it's just dog crap, it's just dog shit, I'm just gonna be in there because now I'm just looking at it from a technical aspect now. I'm not entertained now. I'm just looking at it from a technical aspect now. What can I steal from this? What can I learn from this at this point? That's all I'm in there for at that point.
I was watching a film yesterday, which I wasn't into, and the thing that really got me just over the edge was the technical aspect,
Right.
as in how much I did not like the way they were doing things.
Right. It's a technical.
It was an
analysis
indie.
at that point.
It was an indie film. I love indie films.
Yeah.
This one was shit. But anyway, it was an indie film whereby, for some reason, they decided to have even static shots handheld.
Okay.
So you would see just a wide of something, or maybe a frame within a frame of a doorway, handheld.
All right.
Why? Put it on a tripod, have it static, because what's the purpose of me seeing the fact that you will very slightly and intermittently sway and
Was
put up a bit and down a bit?
Was the whole movie done handheld?
Yes,
Right. That's probably why.
but it didn't work.
It just didn't work, right?
It didn't work.
Well, I would imagine the story and the characters weren't even the film wasn't working for you, just story wise at all, entertainment.
No, but the camera movement definitely played a role in
right.
helping me get out of it.
I
You know, if you're going to be shaking the whole time, then I'm going to be focused on the shaking.
It reminds me of the people who were complaining about the Bourne sequels when it turned into handheld.
I haven't seen them.
I love handheld cinematography. I think it's
I love it when it's done
when
well.
it's done well. Yeah. Sorry to add that caveat. When it's done well, yeah. It.
Yeah, no, in general, I'm not a huge fan,
Oh, really?
but when it's done well,
I like it because when you do it and you do it well, it's one of those things that adds to it adds to the film. Um, it adds to the reason why you're engaged in the story, because even
yes.
because the camera work adds a certain layer to the film, and it engages you, right? And some people complained about it in the Bourne sequels, but it's like I think it worked because it just gave you that unease that the film was based on
Right, don't get me wrong. I like handheld when it
when it
works. I
works.
don't like it for handheld's sake. Like,
Yeah.
it depends. If you, for example, are moving around or you want to do a certain form of coverage or whatever you're going with that, and it makes sense, great. But if you are doing a static shot, I don't see the point in the handheld movement because then it takes away from what you're trying to focus on. You're trying to focus on the subject being whatever, whether it be a person or a prop or what it happens to be, or a vista, infinite options. But when you end up having handheld and it's just like, okay, get this shot, and it looks like that the whole time, it's very hard to not be paying more attention to the way the camera's moving
Like the
instead of
cameraman's
the image.
coming down from the fifth cup of coffee or something like that.
Precisely. And that's a problem for me because I can't watch that.
It's interesting that if that's like one of the big reasons it took you out of it.
Well, it's with anything. Once you realize, for me, once I realize a film is a film, and what I mean by that is once I realize that this is being staged, I'm no longer invested in the production itself. I'm no longer invested in the show. And once I realize if I see a boom mic, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I'm no longer just buying into the painting.
Right.
Now I'm realizing that there was someone that used brushes and paint to make this, and
Right.
that's a canvas, and there's a metal frame around it, and
It
that's not how I enjoy things.
obviously, yeah, it would definitely take out a lot of people from it, right? Some films have been notorious for that. I think like Dolomite, for example, right? But that actually turned into a an underground hit. Which
Yeah,
also,
it did.
I love the movie with Eddie Murphy, that the Dolomite is my name.
You do?
Yeah, I watched it a couple of months ago. I actually really enjoyed it. It was just, yeah, it was a bit sentimental, but I enjoyed it.
Good.
It was just, I love seeing. I was just good seeing Eddie Murphy in something in such a long time, and it was just a kind of like a charming character that he played. And who surprised me in there was Keegan Michael. I keep forgetting fucking
You
Keith.
stood in for the man.
I know. I was gonna call him Keegan Michael Peel. Yeah, Keegan Michael Key. Yeah,
Keegan Michael Key,
Key.
I
Yeah,
think his
Keegan
name
Michael
is.
Key. He actually played a serious character, and he did it really good. Like he wasn't funny man, and I was like surprised. He played just the straight, serious type, and he did it really good.
That's great. I mean, is he a nice person?
I didn't really interact with him much, but
Oh, okay.
yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't see it. I didn't witness anything abnormal or obnoxious. Well, there was a fu- there was a funny incident that happened with him on the first night, but you know, it's it's a kind of a funny story. Just being on set when the first night we were shooting, it was a night. It was that night. We're all tired, and this is starting at like 11 o'clock in the night at the house, and he ran into the screen door. He was in his head, and then it was kind of we all started laughing. And it was one of the funniest moments I've had on set because we're just all there. I'm with what's his name, all of them, right? And I'm just kind of like, whoa. I was kind of starstruck too, right? Because it's like I'm here with fuck, I'm going brain freeze.
Olivia Munn,
Olive,
Thomas Jane.
Thomas Jane, Boyd, I'm with Travante, and yeah, Keegan Michael Key, and what's his name, the one from Lord of the Rings that played. They were all there, so I was kind of just awestruck and kind of there and kind of quiet to trying to start a conversation, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know what's protocol here, and then just all of a sudden we all hear a boom, and we just kind of look at the window. It's Keegan, and he just hits the door. It's screen door, and it's like we all just start laughing, and it was just a great way to break the ice, the tension in the air, and they all start kind of just not ragging on him, and then he comes in, and then he's just kind of like comedically playing it off, and it was just a really hilarious moment. And then Boyd was just like, yeah, I've done the same thing too. He's like he's full on ran into like a net door in his house when he was younger, like took the whole screen down.
I've walked into a screen door before.
I think we've all.
If it's cleaned well, then you'll walk in. You'll assume.
It happens. I think it's happened to. I think it's probably happened to a majority of us in life, figuratively and literally. So, but just go back to what we were saying. It's like we're talking about foreign films, right?
Mm-hmm.
And taking from it. I guess, you know what? I kind of can self-reflect at this moment and say maybe a lot of these remakes and reboots have been based on that. Maybe it has been based off of general inspiration. You know, going back and watching something and going, yeah, I'm a little bit dubious, but I guess some of them have been based on that. But I just think when it comes to sourcing from foreign films, it's just, to me, it's like just reading a great book. To me, it's the equivalent of reading a great book and going, I want to make a movie out of this.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, as I say, you know me, I like to write my own stuff, but I can understand if it's a very diverse profession making film, because there are, just like music, you can take from something to learn from it, to build from it, to create something new, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
You've never read something or seen something where it's like, I want to redo that or remake that of my own, just as a thought or general inspiration?
Remaking in terms of anything I saw, no. There are certain angles or certain frames that I thought were fantastic. In terms of books that I've read, not really.
Well, recently, I just out of the blue, when this whole pandemic started, I just got into graphic novels. I don't know, just something that just came to me. And one of the ones I picked up was this one, right?
Okay, so read that out because we're a podcast.
So for those who are listening, it's based off of Frank Big Black Smith, and it's called Big Black Stand at Attica, and it's by this American and French. It's American writer and a French illustrator, and it's based off of the Attica prison riot that happened in 1971. And it's a graphic novel based on one of the inmates there and his story. And I was honestly reading it, and to me it was just like, this is gonna, if somebody doesn't do it, somebody might do it, but I'm just reading it and like, this is perfect for a movie.
So here's the thing. Anyone listening or watching this is what I'm going to encourage Bola does. He's going to beat you to the punch. When we're done this podcast, send the emails, make the phone calls. You get those rights before anyone else.
Mm-hmm. I think you should cut that part out before somebody steals the rights. I don't know what is involved with getting licensing from this thing, but to me, reading that novel, graphic novel, it's like, this is a movie right here.
Well, if you want to get the rights, all you need to do is send out the emails, find out the information that way. So find who's the publisher, see, for example, if the writer and illustrator are on social media, try and get a hold of them, and say, you know, I'm a filmmaker, I've got a production company called Broken English Films, boom.
But these things would. How much do you think these things would cost, though?
It's really a piece of string type. You can option something for as little as $1 legally, with the intent of it being revised and looked at later down the line. We'll explain that to all you listeners a little bit later, but Bola's taking this idea. He's taking this idea. This is his. You thieving bastards.
If I see it, no, I could probably sue based off of this podcast.
Well, legally at the moment you don't have a position.
I don't know.
So I spoke about this
recording as me stamping out the territory. I don't know if that will work in a court of law though.
It might be iffy. So
It's
did you
okay.
hear that Netflix cancelled Altered Carbon?
Yeah, I've heard that. I haven't watched it though. Auditioned for it.
You might like it.
I should check it out.
I mean, it's kind of a long.
It's cyberpunk.
Visually, yeah. Visually it reminds me of stuff you like a Blade Runner type thing.
Right.
It's not like that, but it's along those lines in terms of fantastic imagery and that sort of projection. So it might be worth you taking the time to give it a look. There's 2 seasons on Netflix. There won't be any more.
Yeah.
But the actual sets. Did you ever work on it?
I don't think. No, I can't say 100%. I might have been an extra on it. I know I've auditioned
the
for
sets
a
were
couple
magnificent. The sets were magnificent.
The sets I would imagine it looks pretty impressive.
They were great.
Yeah.
They were great.
No, come to think of it, I'm pretty sure. No, I'm pretty sure I've never been on it.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that got cancelled. Did you hear? I mean, this isn't really film, but Hassan Minaj's The Patriot Act got cancelled.
I saw that the other day too. It is what it is, man.
I mean, Netflix are getting ruthless.
No, it's just the nature of the beast, right? They just look at things and they go, "What's pulling in the ratings and what's not."
Yeah, and that makes sense.
You know, it's surprising what does, because only they have the metrics,
right?
So you never know with these platforms. Now I
think that's good that they do.
What was that?
I think it's good they're the only ones with the metrics.
Well,
the reason I say that is this. It's the idea of people gravitating to what's trending and all the rest of it that sort of takes away from the option of watching anything.
Some of the things that are trending, I'm like, what the fuck? Where it says you're trending in Canada now, I'm like, this is okay. This is what people are watching. All right, okay. Sometimes, yeah, that looks interesting, but a lot of times I'm like, holy shit, this is what happens when you're stuck inside all day, isn't it? You just start watching shit that nobody should be watching.
But what were you saying about Netflix?
I think there's been a general, based on the analysis of other people and even my general observation, I think Netflix is switching over now, because you've noticed that because there's more competition with other streaming companies and services and studios and things like that, most of their content is going to be just original stuff. And because they're going to lose, I would imagine they're going to lose a lot of things, because a lot of their partners are realizing they're probably they weren't getting the best deal out of things, and they're just going to pull their stuff and put it on their own platforms. Mm-hmm. And there's just, going to be competition like Disney Plus, right? But I think Netflix they kind of knew this was going to happen. So they just started switching to the phase of creating their own original content. Right. And it's kind of been remarkable to see over Netflix in the last, since its exception till now, where it's like, it was completely 100% unoriginal stuff, but just stuff that was out there. And then you just start slowly seeing it turn into just, and they started creating their own stuff. And they went and they started off with a bang too. And then now there seems to be transitioning to where it's just going to be mostly or predominantly or Netflix original content.
And that's the way to keep your money.
Yeah, I guess it's a good. I mean, it's what they have to do because, you know,
Well, they've also started putting out Blu-rays.
what was that?
They've also started putting out Blu-rays.
Have they?
Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that.
Are you into a Criterion at all?
Another Criterion edition of things. I'm not saying I probably. No, I wouldn't say I am. I'm not opposed to them. But I'm not.
They're great. They're great.
I don't
great.
collect them. I
They're great.
I can't remember the last time I've held a physical media of anything.
It's been a while for me too, but Netflix put out Marriage Story, and they put out a bunch of their really successful original films on a Blu-ray. I assume with bonus features, but I'm not sure.
Oh, I didn't know that. It's honestly, it's like I can't even remember the last time I've even seen a Blu-ray player. Or,
well, yeah, I've got my PlayStation. That's my Blu-ray player.
Yeah, you get a play. That's the only thing I've been only aware of it on a PlayStation. Can't wait to get my own, by the way, when the PS5 comes out. But anyways, Sony, if you're listening. But aside from that, it's like honestly, physical media for me, it's so alien now.
Times have very much changed.
But good for them if they're doing that. But I think they've seen the writing on the wall and they're switching over. So they're turning into a studio, right? It's gonna be, it's just
they are a studio.
They are a studio at this point. They're no longer some general streaming service, right? They're their own content.
No, definitely not.
They're a general production house, legit production house now.
Yep, with offices globally.
Yeah, which is good for them. I mean, it's a good. Hey, they've been creating stuff that I've been watching. I'll tell you that much. Now
I mean, we spoke about
again,
Jordan's The Last Dance. That was a great doc.
Oh yeah.
They've got some good stuff.
They got some good stuff. That was actually a really good documentary. That was one of those ones that you watch. You watched it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that got me fired up. But
to get back into basketball?
No, not. Here's the thing. I listen to other people. It gets them fired up in what their thing is, right? So obviously, if I put a basketball in my hand, I'd probably burn the building down or something like that because not because I'm not great. It's because I'm not awful. I
thought it was going to be you just flip out in a bad mood, get a
it's not. I'm not saying I'm NBA. I'm like NBA Jam material. I'm like, no, I can barely dribble the damn ball. So no, but it's fascinating watching a man in his element and his mentality.
A driven person in their element, yeah.
And somebody who's just driven like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was definitely the thing about him. The idea that he was not going to lose.
No, and that's the attitude that makes somebody like him the best.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you can be talented. Now, don't get me wrong. He's inherently talented, but what gave Jordan his edge was the way he thought.
Well, and there's also the argument that it doesn't matter how talented you are if you don't have the
fire,
the effort put behind it. It's not you being really good at something. It's how you apply yourself and connect and get it done.
Exactly.
So you could be amazing at something. What is it? I'm trying to think of the cliche that accompanies that, but nevertheless, it's basically get on with it. You know what I mean?
And on that
don't
note,
ponder.
We'll end on that note. Get on with it. Get on with it. Watch that. Watch that if you want inspiration. Watch that documentary, and whatever you do out there, it'll fire anybody up.
With that, we will be having a lot of things to show you shortly. We know you're eager, and if you're not, get eager.
And on that note, folks, thanks for listening and thanks for watching. Watching. Thanks for watching.
You've been watching too many foreign films.
English goes away when you're watching a lot of those foreign films. Anyways, y'all.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.
Hasta luego.